Best way to get a child started on a pedal bike is if they've actually had a balance bike first, and they learn the act of balancing and steering a two-wheeler without the complication of pedalling and taking your feet off the ground at the same time. So ideally a child's already ridden a balance bike before they come to their first bike with pedals. The traditional way of learning to ride a bike or teach your child to ride a bike is with stabilisers, the little wheels either side of the bike. We don't recommend that for most children. It isn't the optimal way to learn. The stabilisers hold the bike in a rigid upright position and don't allow it to lean. And so what a child learns to do if they learn to ride a bike with stabilisers fitted is actually learn to ride a tricycle, which requires quite different weight distribution. So on a tricycle, you turn the handlebars and move your body weight to stop it tipping up onto one wheel. And on a bicycle, you just lean and the bicycle goes with you. So what the child learns to do on stabilisers is something different that when they're removed, they have to unlearn. Most children will make the development necessary to have the potential to learn to ride at some point between 3.5 and 4.5. So the expectation of the parents just need to understand that, so you're not expecting something unreasonable. If they appear not to be ready, it's quite self-evident straight away. Their legs will flail off the pedals, they won't be finding their balance. If children have seen other children cycling, they've usually got some sort of idea about turning the pedals. If they haven't, then just the action of turning the pedals can be quite alien to start with. They are hardwired to learn how to walk and run, but we've invented cycling, so there's no genetic desire or understanding of how to do it. So sometimes that can mean maybe another adult holding the foot on the pedal and just tracing the circles to start with, and they don't even know whether they should be pedalling forwards and backwards. If they're ready to learn to ride, they will get the forward circular pattern of pedalling fairly quickly within a few minutes. If they're not ready, they don't grasp that bit, and that's the time to think, yeah, we'll just leave this for a few weeks and we'll give it another go later. Before we start our first lesson, it's important to choose a suitable area. It's very tempting to go for soft grass when you've got a child because it makes for a softer landing, but it's actually much harder to learn to ride on. You're looking to get some momentum, rolling momentum for the bike, because that's when it starts to balance more easily. And so a smooth tarmac surface, and ideally a nice open space like we've got behind us, so that the child's free to wobble and wander at will and learn how the bike responds to their body movements, is ideal, obviously away from traffic and obstacles and relatively flat. Before we put the child on the bike, obviously you need a bike that's the right size. Too big is a real no-no. Too small isn't ideal, but it's better than too big. And you need to set the saddle height initially so that the child can get the balls of their feet on the ground. It's tempting to go for flat feet because it feels safer with a child that's perhaps a bit anxious to start with, but that makes the pedalling action more difficult, and the knees are coming up too high, which then interferes with the steering and makes gaining balance in the early stages more difficult. Working out how to support the child is a really important thing to begin with. It's tempting to hold on to the saddle and the handlebars, but you're actually interfering with how the bike leans and responds to the rider's weight, and that's an important part of the learning experience. We found it's best to stand behind the bicycle and the child, and you can wedge the rear wheel of the bike between your feet and calves to hold it up. Support them under the armpits so they've got complete control and feel for the bike. It's easier for you because you don't have to bend over, and as they get going you can gradually release your hold but have your hands in situ to catch a wobble that seems to be going out of control. And if they really have a violent wobble, you can actually just pick the child up from the armpits and let the bicycle fall away and remove them from the spiky bits. When you're running along with the child with your hands under the armpits, you can actually teach them how the bike responds to leaning and turn them. So you can turn a child around in a circle or in a series of S-bends by guiding their body, and that helps them understand how the bicycle responds to leaning and the two-wheeler responds. It's helpful if, when the child's pedalling forward, you can provide a bit of propulsion by pushing, and when they pedal backwards or stop pedalling, you stop pushing, because that creates an association between forward pedalling and forward motion. If they're ready to learn to ride, they will find their balance and be pedalling forward quite quickly, usually within one session, half an hour or so, and you can be running along ready to catch but not actually supporting the child, and that's the first wow moment for parent and child usually. Getting the pedalling and balancing without supporting first is the best way to go about it, and it gives some positive reinforcement for the child and a sense of having achieved something before moving on to the other elements of it. You need to position the pedal in what we call the 2 o'clock position, or in line with the down tube of the bike. It's best if you do that to begin with for the child and get them to put their foot on the top and explain to them that they need to push hard with that foot at the same time as push on the ground with the other leg. And it'll take quite a few practice goes to get that bit of coordination together. It's a bit more complicated than just riding. You can then show them how to put that pedal in the start position themselves by putting the foot under the pedal and lifting it into position. For stopping, it's sometimes easier to introduce the concept of the brakes without them actually riding, to get them to walk along with the bike and pull the levers on and feel that it stops, and do that a few times, and they will usually grab pretty hard. Which you don't want them to do when they're riding, because they'll stop so suddenly that they might not get their feet down in time. You can then, while they're walking, encourage them to brake in a more controlled way by pulling the brakes gently or squeezing slowly. And once they seem to have the hang of that, then you can get them back on the bike and have a few goes with you there to catch them. And they'll usually get the braking right but not put their feet down, so then you have to then teach them that as it stops to get ready to put your feet down. And they'll piece that lot together usually fairly quickly as well, but maybe not all in one session. You might need to try that over a few days or a few weekends to get them confident, or confident enough for you not to be running alongside anymore. Every child's different. The point at which they're ready to learn to ride varies, and I think particularly for keen cycling parents, we're itching to get them going. Just be wary of turning it into a stressful experience for the child, from translating your desire to have a champion cyclist at the age of 3 into a stressful experience for them. And just wait till they're ready and let them do it in their own time.